Heads up, this podcast isn't therapy. It's bold, blunt, and irreverent, but it's not a substitute for professional help. Full disclaimer is in the blurb below.
Hey, it's Annie, and today I'm actually going to be talking about rupture and repair in relationship. This one's a good one. So picture your kitchen sink, cornflakes fossilized from breakfast, last night's lasagna pan glued to the counter with cheese that could tile a bathroom, a coffee cup with that sticky skin forming on the top, ugh. And now imagine living like that for a week. Rats would throw a house party and maybe leave you a review. And that's how most couples treat conflict. They leave it to coagulate. They hope it evaporates. They step around the mess and then wonder why the house stinks to high heaven and smells like doom. Healthy couples do something very unromantic and very loving. They clean up as they go. So what does that mean? It means that they don't wait until resentment has turned rancid. They don't stack up small injuries into a leaning tower of passive aggression. They don't let the coffee cup grow a second skin or the silence between them calcify until it feels unbridgeable and a massive chasm has formed. They wipe down the counter while it's still fresh. They rinse the mug before the stain sets. In other words, they rupture and pretty quickly repair. So here's the secret most people don't want to hear. Repair is not a grand gesture. It's not flowers or a weekend away or some Oscar-winning apology after a week of icy silence. It's a hand squeeze in the middle of the row. It's regrounding, saying, hey, I'm really sorry I snapped, before the bruise forms. It's a joke that lands at the right moment, a softening of tone, an admission that you added petrol to the fire. Repair is ordinary, repair is humble, repair is love in its everyday clothes. Couples who repair quickly are not lucky, they're intentional. They care enough to scrape the pan before it turns into cement. They know that 3 days of sulking doesn't build strength, it breeds mold. They know that distance left unaddressed doesn't dissolve, it ferments. Because here's the truth. Every single couple fights, every couple gets it wrong. Every couple has mornings when the words come out too sharp and evenings where patience runs thin. That's not the problem. The problem is when you don't clean as you go, when you leave hurts lying around long enough to rot the floorboards of the house of your relationship. So here's the thing most people miss about relationships. It's not the size of the fight that predicts whether a couple will last, it's how quickly they repair. There's tons of research on this. It makes it plain. You can read it yourself. So you can scream in a row, you can sulk, you can slam the door. None of that seals your fate. What matters is whether or not you circle back. What matters is if you make a repair attempt in the middle of the chaos or soon after it. So all the research shows that couples who do that are the ones who make it. And let's clear something up right away. Repair is nothing dramatic. You don't have to head off to a hotel. There's no grand gestures or hallmark apologies. Repair is really small. It's very ordinary. So it's simply owning and holding yourself accountable, like saying, I lost my head, but I'm still here. I'm owning this. I'm really sorry. It's lowering your voice and saying, I'm actually sorry, you're right, and I see why what I've just done has hurt you. So, repair is a small joke, laughing at yourself at the right moment that takes the sting out of the air without denying the truth of what's said. So, it's ownership, owning your part without mounting some kind of ridiculous courtroom defense. These are small things, they're not trivial, but they're the glue of the relationship, they're the oxygen of it. And when couples repair quickly, they're sending a clear message to each other's nervous systems. Hey, you're safe with me, even when we fight. You matter enough that I will not leave you drowning in uncertainty. I care far too much to let a hairline crack turn into a structural break. And contrast that with couples who stew, who let arguments sit for 3 days, like milk in the boot of a car in July, who turn silence into a weapon, waiting for the other to fold first. That's how resentment breeds. That's how distance calcifies. And that is how the emotional kitchen fills up with mouldy dishes until the whole place stinks and nobody wants to come home anymore. So that is the analogy that I use with couples is the dirty house kitchen. Fast repair is not about being perfect, it's about being invested. It's about valuing the relationship more than your pride in the moment. The couples who thrive are not the ones who never row, they're the ones who refuse to let the row win. They patch the crack before it becomes the Grand Canyon. And here's the kicker. Repair is cumulative. Every small apology, every quick reset, every moment of softening puts credit in an emotional bank and it builds resilience. It tells the body and mind over and over, we can rupture and we can return. And that repeated experience is what creates trust. Not fairy tales, not perfection. Trust is born in the ordinary acts of repair. It's really, really simple. Sometimes we all have a desire to sweep something under the carpet, but we know we're deluded. So couples are no different. They imagine that if they stay quiet long enough, avoid long enough, that the fight will evaporate. But nothing evaporates in the emotional world. It ferments, it putrefies. It lies there like a body unburied, wrapped in silence until the time comes for it to be opened. Then it's a bit of a mummy, preserved enough to terrify and decayed enough to disgust. Sometimes I come across this in therapy, generally speaking, and that's when couples come in after years of never repairing. It's never too late if the will is there, but everything seems embalmed. The tone is brittle and the smiles are fixed masks, and beneath it all is a massive amount of resentment. Let me assure you, delayed repair doesn't buy peace, it buys corrosion. Every unacknowledged slight, every unspoken injury, every unresolved night spent back to back in bed adds another layer to the rot. You think you're buying calm, but what you're really stockpiling is contempt. And contempt is the nuclear bomb of relationships. It's the look that says you're beneath me. The Gottmans, they flagged contempt as the number one predictor of divorce, and contempt grows out of uncleaned messes left to stew. Fast repair, by contrast, is like cleaning the cut before it festers. The small sting of iodine or a bit of antiseptic, but then healing begins. Couples who repair quickly do not give resentment time to seed itself in the bloodstream of the relationship. They metabolize hurt before it mutates. And this does not mean perfect repair, it means good enough repair. Winnicott taught us that good enough is what creates resilience in infants. The parent who makes mistakes but comes back again and again, showing the baby that rupture is not the end. The same is true in adult love. A partner who returns quickly, who says, I was sharp, I'm so sorry, teaches the nervous system that conflict does not equal abandonment. And that love can hold frustration and it allows the couple to avoid collapse. The couples who leave things for days or weeks create a different nervous system lesson. They teach each other when there's conflict, you're unsafe. When there is conflict, you'll be left alone. When there's conflict, love will vanish. And the body remembers. It codes the partner as a danger signal. And that's why couples who never repair quickly often stop touching. The body cannot soften to someone it codes as unsafe. Then sex dries up. Affection then becomes really stiff and stilted, and trust evaporates. And all because neither of them would take 5 minutes to clean up the mess before it festers. So yes, it's bonkers, it's tragic to sit there on opposite sides of a silent kitchen, pretending the smell is not real, while the dishes of resentment grow mold. Healthy couples know better. They rinse the cup before the stain sets. They sweep the crumbs before the rats arrive. They know that the small act of repair today saves them from embalming a corpse tomorrow. And back to my analogy of, leaving the milk in the boot of your car on the hottest day of July. You know that smell, sour, sticky, penetrating every fibre of the upholstery. Once it's there, good luck ever getting it out. And that's what happens when couples sulk for 3 days. By the time they finally speak, the atmosphere is already curdled. And then we have some couples who treat repair like filing taxes. Once a year, reluctantly, with resentment. They sit down with their mental receipts, tallying up every slight, every insult, every forgotten bin day. Back in March, you said I was overreacting. In June, you didn't text me when you got to Cork. They approach repair with the energy of an audit, not an act of love. And just like taxes, they file late, avoid eye contact, and hope nobody notices the missing forms. But they will be noticed. And others do the seasonal deep clean, months of silence, months of low grade irritation, then one spectacular row at Christmas when the turkey is dry and the wine is not plentiful enough, and out comes a year's worth of grievances in one volcanic eruption. It's less repair and more exorcism. Nobody walks away healed, just scorched, and that involves the defense of condensation. So healthy couples don't do that. Healthy couples do what your mom told you when you were a teenager. Rinse the plate, don't let it sit. Now spot clean as you go, and now dunk it into the dishwasher. Quick apology, quick reset, quick moment of humour. No mould in the sink, no milk in the boot, no forensic audit whenever that comes up. Because let's be honest, the smell of unwashed conflict is unmistakable. You know the couples, they sit in restaurants, not speaking, radiating tension, so thick that the waiter wants hazard pay. The lasagna pan has been sitting in their marriage for years. They just push it further into the corner and light another scented candle, hoping nobody notices. The couples who thrive are not saints. They bicker, they snipe, they snap, they wipe the counter before it grows fur. They apologize before it becomes an archaeological dig. They don't wait for the rats to host a rave in the kitchen. They clean as they go. And because of that, their house, their relationship actually feels like somewhere you'd want to live. You see, a healthy disagreement isn't about never raising your voice or walking around like you're some monk or nun in a monastery pretending nothing ever gets under your skin. Everybody's going to annoy everybody else at some stage. A healthy disagreement is about having a container that can hold a fire without burning the house down. The couples who do this, well, they know something most people don't. Conflict is not the end of love, it's proof that you're alive together. It starts before the fight even begins. They've an unspoken pact, or sometimes a very spoken pact, that disagreement is normal. That raising an issue isn't betrayal, it's intimacy. And I actually think sometimes preempting them is really intelligent. So they know that they're allowed to clash without it being a referendum on the relationship. And because of that, the nervous system can really breathe. When the nervous system believes that conflict equals abandonment, panic sets in. When it believes conflict is survivable, you can actually argue instead of implode. So when the sparks fly, healthy couples stay specific. They argue the point, not the person. It is about the bins, not about laziness as a personality trait. It is about a late text, not about your partner being fundamentally unreliable. They keep the field narrow and specific because they know the second you weaponize character, you're not debating, you're assassinating someone. And remember, tone is absolutely everything. You can deliver the same words in a sharp clip tone that makes the body brace for impact, or in a measured tone that says, I'm really frustrated with you, but I'm not leaving. Let's have a conversation about this. The nervous system codes tone faster than language, and that's why shouting rarely lands the point. All it communicates is danger. Healthy couples modulate. They know that the body hears volume before it hears sense. And yes, sometimes the flood comes, heart racing, jaw clenching, words turning to weapons. In that moment, the healthy couple doesn't storm out forever. They call a break. They put the fight on pause, the way you'd put a film on pause, promising to press play again. The crucial part is the return. So flight without return codes as abandonment, break plus return codes as safety. That distinction makes all the difference. And psychodynamically, what's happening underneath is a constant checking of projection. Is this really about you, or is it about the ghost of mum and dad, or the ex who broke your heart in 2012? Healthy couples have enough awareness to catch themselves when they're dragging ghosts into the room. They can name it, they can laugh at it, or at least stop throwing it like a weapon. They also understand attachment. You see, beneath the anger, one partner is usually seeking closeness, reassurance, or autonomy. If you can hear the need under the noise, the whole fight will transform. The repair is mandatory, not optional. They don't file grievances into a dark drawer and hope the other forgets. They circle back. They acknowledge their part, even if small. They say the words out loud. I was super defensive there. Oh my God, that wasn't fair to you. Because silence leaves rot in the walls. They seal it, not just with words, but with touch and eye contact, with some embodied sign that the nervous system can trust. And perhaps the most overlooked piece is integration. After the storm, healthy couples don't pretend it never happened. They use it, they update the system, they make agreements about what they were arguing about, whether it was money, time, so that the same argument doesn't loop endlessly. They then put a deposit back into the trust bank and they make meaning out of the rupture. Hey, we got through that one. We know how to get through it the next. That's the anatomy of a healthy disagreement. Not conflict free, not perfect, but resilient. A lab where intimacy is stress tested and strengthened. The argument becomes not a crack in the wall, but a stretch in the muscle. Rupture and repair, tear and recovery. The couples who understand this don't fear the fight, they fear the silence that never ends. And the repair ritual is where love proves itself, not in the fireworks, not in the honeymoon, not in the Instagram posts of matching jumpers in Rome or at Christmas. It proves itself in what happens after you've both lost the rag. After the words come out too sharp and after the door is closed far too hard, what happens next is the difference between couples who grow and couples who rot. So healthy couples don't leave repair hanging. They don't wait for 3 days until the smell of sour milk is impossible to ignore. They repair within 24 hours. Not always perfectly, not always eloquently, but they circle back. Because the nervous system cannot be left in limbo. It needs to know, hey, are you with me or are you gone? And that answer, it has to come really quickly, or else the body codes danger and starts to armor up. Repair begins with acknowledgement, and the words really matter. I always think as well it's important to give context. So, hey, gee, I was super defensive, I cut you off, I dismissed you. I am so sorry, I've had a really, really bad day. I'm going to recalibrate, I'll be back to you, and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to really listen. And even if your part was only 5%, you name it. Why? Well, because when both partners are willing to own their little bit, the atmosphere totally shifts. It's goodwill. It's no longer about blame, it's about shared responsibility. And then the wall will dissolve. Touch is powerful here. A hug, a hand held longer than usual, skin against skin. The body believes what the body feels. Nervous systems co-regulate faster with touch than with words. You can say I'm sorry across the kitchen, but a hand on the cheek while you say it lands 10 times deeper. Repair also involves explanation, but never excuses. I snapped because I was stressed because of X, Y, and Z. It was definitely so unfair of me to take it out on you. And that context softens edges, but it doesn't erase responsibility. Remember, excuses are deflections, explanations are different, they're bridges. And then comes gratitude. This is the most underrated piece of repair. Thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for not walking out. Gratitude reframes the fight as a moment of endurance together, rather than a threat to the bond. It pulls both partners back into the sense of being on the same team. Think of repair like tending to a cut. So I've used this earlier as an analogy. You never leave it open to fester, you're going to get an infection. You clean it, you disinfect it, and you put on a plaster, and then maybe later you massage the scar. And every time you do that, the skin learns to heal stronger. The relationship is the same. The faster you tend to the wound, the less scar tissue builds up. What repair is not? Well, it's not a groveling grand gesture once every 6 months. It's not a trip away that's meant to erase years of hostility. It's not sex that covers the wound but doesn't stitch it. Those things are temporary. They're anesthetics. Repair is not about distraction, it's about integration. So the wound has to be named and tended to, and you need to fold into it the story of resilience. Couples who practice repair quickly create a living memory bank of survival. Each time they rupture and return, they prove to each other, hey, we can fight and we'll still be here for one another. We can hurt and we can still choose each other. That repeated experience builds a very deep, unshakable trust. Not the fantasy of never fighting, but the lived truth of always finding their way back. That is the repair ritual. It's very simple, quite unglamorous and repetitive. That cleaning up as you go along, that spot cleaning, it keeps love livable. So you're not embalming the corpse of a long-term relationship or marriage with scented candles masking the odor, just the daily work of cleaning as you go. Here's the part most couples miss. Repair doesn't just stop the bleeding. Done well, it actually strengthens the bone. Integration is where the fight becomes material for growth, not just another mess wiped off the counter. And this is why healthy couples don't fear conflict. They know every rupture properly repaired is another brick in the foundation. Integration begins with revisiting the actual issue. If the row is about money, they don't just say sorry and move on. They sit down, receipts in hand, and create a clearer plan. If the fight was about childcare, they make a schedule. If it was about one partner always being late, they negotiate real adjustments. This is the practical seam stitching of love, updating the operating system so the same bug doesn't crash it again and again. Then comes the affectional reset. Repair has to be embodied. Words alone leave it too cerebral. Healthy couples know how to seal it with something physical. A shared meal is really good. Hugs and kisses. And yeah, after a little while, sometimes even sex. Not as avoidance, not as wallpaper, over cracks, but as a way to tell the nervous system, we're still safe here, I love you, and we're still together. The body will believe that faster than the mind ever will. You see, integration means meaning making. Healthy couples, they look at the fight and say, okay, every time we argue in return, we learn more about how to love one another. They transform conflict from a sign of failure into a lab for intimacy. And this is where Winnicott's idea of good enough comes back in. So remember, as a child, you learned resilience through rupture and repair. Adults learn deeper trust through disagreements that end not in abandonment, but in a healthy form of reconnection and understanding and listening. Another overlooked layer is continuity. Healthy couples underline explicitly, hey, I was angry, but I never stopped loving you. Those words are glue. They prevent the nervous system from confusing temporary anger with permanent withdrawal. They remind both partners that conflict lives inside a container of love, not outside of it. And I want to talk a little bit about novelty. After a storm, the best couples inject something fresh, a new plan, a new joke. It's so important because novelty resets the emotional climate faster than routine. It's like opening the windows after a stuffy row. Fresh air floods in and suddenly the house feels breathable again. And this is not rocket science. It's definitely not mystical. It's not reserved for lucky couples. It's the very ordinary practice of facing the mess, cleaning it, and folding the experience back into the story of your relationship. Every time you integrate a fight into intimacy, you're making a deposit into the trust bank, as I've said before. So the next time conflict arises, you start richer, not poorer. So when you hear people say, oh, we never fight, do not be fooled. That's not a badge of honor. That's often a red flag for avoidance or false harmony or a lack of intimacy. The couples who last are not the ones who dodge conflict. They're the ones who use conflict. They metabolize it and build stronger muscle from it. They don't just survive the storm, they grow because of it. Every couple thinks repair is just about saying sorry, hugging it out and moving on, and that's the surface level. The invisible boxes being ticked, the ones most people never tick. They're what decide whether your love deepens or corrodes. They're not flashy, but they're the difference between repair that sticks and repair that is just wallpapering over cracks. So the first invisible box is self-esteem safety. In a healthy disagreement, neither partner walks away feeling fundamentally diminished. You can argue even fiercely without stripping away dignity, and that is rare. Too many couples throw daggers at each other's identity. Oh, you're so selfish. Oh, you're so lazy. You're so impossible to live with. These words lodge in the psyche like shrapnel. Repair means fighting the behaviour, not assassinating the self. If your partner leaves an argument feeling like less of a person, you haven't repaired, you've wounded. Then there's shame containment. Conflict almost always brushes up against our core wounds, the fear of being unlovable, inadequate, replaceable. In very bad fights, shame gets weaponized. Partners use silence, sarcasm, or contempt to trigger those old scars. In healthy repair, shame is recognized and contained. One partner might even say, "Oh my, I see that landed on your sore spot. That wasn't my intention. I'm really sorry." And that kind of naming pulls the sting out of it. Shame unacknowledged will fester, and shame named with care dissipates. So another invisible box, as I've said before, is novelty. After a rupture, routine doesn't always cut it. Healthy couples know how to bring in something fresh. So you bring in a new plan, you really allow yourself to disrupt the heaviness and remind the nervous system that joy still lives here. It's about being playful, doing something completely different. Couples who repeat the same repair ritual without novelty will often feel like they're going through the motions. It won't feel sincere. And couples who inject something surprising will heal faster. And perhaps the most underappreciated invisible box is the trust deposits. Every time you argue and repair, you're either making a withdrawal or a deposit from the emotional bank account. Quick, genuine repairs are deposits. They increase the baseline of safety. They really ensure that the next time you start with a surplus. That's always a good thing. And couples who don't repair or repair quite sloppily, they deplete their account rapidly. They start every new conflict already in debt, and that's why small arguments in those couples will explode. They're not just about the current issue, they're about the entire overdraft that they're dragging along behind them. So tick all of these invisible boxes: self-esteem intact, shame contained, novelty injected, trust deposited, and something extraordinary begins to happen. Disagreements stop being evidence of incompatibility. They become proof that your love can take pressure. Love has to learn how to bend and not break. And you stop fearing conflict because you know you can metabolize it together. And that's what secure love feels like. It's not conflict free, that would be impossible. It's conflict proof. You have to be very intimate with somebody and you have to love them very deeply to hit those heightened emotional states. People generally might talk to me in therapy about this, that they're terrified that a big fight means the relationship is broken beyond repair. They really will talk about it shamefully. Oh, we shouted, we slammed doors. Oh, we've probably ruined everything. And I always say, you can't go backwards. It's a misunderstanding. The very fact that you reach those levels of intensity is proof that you matter to one another. Nobody gets annoyed at somebody who's totally irrelevant to them. You do not cry until your chest aches over someone you don't care about. The opposite of love is not hate, as they say, it's indifference. And that line is a cliche because it's true. When the air is thick with anger or tears, that is the paradoxical sign that the bond is alive. You're still fighting for it, even badly. Indifference is when you stop turning towards each other at all. Indifference is when you sit in the same room, silent, scrolling on your phones, no heat left, no spark, not even enough energy to row, and nobody actually cares. That's the real death. Conflict can be repaired. Indifference, not so much. And here's the part so many couples never learn. Heightened emotions can absolutely be fixed. Not only fixed, transformed. A blow-up brow, when met with quick repair, can leave you closer than you were before. It's the stretch and heal of intimacy. The muscle tears and grows stronger. The wound closes with thicker skin, and every rupture becomes another thread in the fabric woven tighter because it had to be stitched. Let me just tell you this. Don't panic when the fight comes. Panic if there's no fight left. If you can argue, you can repair. If you can repair, you can grow. That's the alchemy of intimacy. The couples who last are not the ones who never clash, but the ones who refuse to let silence harden into indifference. They know love can survive the storm. What it can't survive is neglect. And when you really love somebody, you feel so bad when you realize you've hurt them, and you can't wait to own it and name it and make it better to the best of your capacity. So the next time you find yourself in the kitchen with raised voices, remember this. The mess in the sink means you still live there together. Clean as you go, repair fast, live love in action. That's how relationships not only survive but deepen. So let me recap and boil all of this down. What do healthy couples actually do? Okay, they clean as they go. They don't let hurt sit until the kitchen of their love smells like doom. They repair fast, not once a year, not once a season, but daily, in ordinary gestures, really simple gestures. They know repair isn't grand. It's a gentle hug, a soft tone, a touch, an ownership. I was sharp, I'm really sorry. They don't sweep fights under the carpet. They know that delayed repair breeds rotten contempt. They fight the behaviour, not the identity, so no name calling, and that allows dignity to survive in the storm. And they circle back within 24 hours to stitch the wound before it festers. They integrate the fight into growth with new agreements, resets, and affection. They tick the invisible boxes, keep self-esteem intact, shame contained, novelty injected, and trust deposited. And above all, they remember this. Heightened emotions mean love is alive. The opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. So love that lasts isn't perfect, it's how you handle the fights. That's today's Love That Lasts episode. Clean as you go, conflict isn't the end of intimacy, it's the kitchen mess you both made together and the proof that you're still alive under the same roof. Couples who thrive are not the ones who never fight, they're the ones who rinse the mug, scrape the pan and wipe the counter before resentment grows. They repair fast, they repair daily, they repair because love matters more than pride. So hey, you've been listening to Soul Path Alchemy. I'm Annie, and if this episode struck a chord, please just share the podcast with one person. It would mean a lot. And thank you so much for listening.